Good afternoon. Welcome members and guests to the Rotary Club of York, the 26th largest club in the world, and a club dedicated more importantly to imagining and living out the Rotary mission of service above self. I'm Glenn Miller, the club president. Our opening song today, God Bless America, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Leanne Wilson. Our invocation will be led by past President Jackie Summers. And our visitors will be introduced by our Executive Director, Lynn Morrison. Please take a moment to silence your electronic devices.
Rotarians and guests, please join me in God Bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will you please join me in a word of prayer? Dear Lord, creator and sustainer of all, we lift up this time of fellowship and give you thanks for this beautiful fall day and its vibrant colors. We're grateful for the blessings and opportunities you provide, and we pray for strength and guidance as we navigate our challenges and responsibilities. Thank you for showing us how to stand in the gap for the marginalized. Please equip us to render service to our community and to open our hearts to serve those in need around the world. We lift up our speaker and all that he's doing to protect and restore our natural lands. The nature around us speaks of your greatness. May we give care to the trees, lakes, streams, and land of your magnificent design. Please bless this food. May it nourish and sustain us. And thank you too for the hands who have prepared and served it. For all you have provided, we humbly give you praise and thanks. Amen.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to have the honor of introducing our guests joining us for today. You're a guest, when I read your name, please stand at your place and remain standing until President Glenn has welcomed you. First, I'd like to welcome William Anstein, the third, guest of Bill Anstein. Shane Bamer, guest of President-elect Aaron Jacobs. Chelsea Foster, and Chelsea Foster, guest of Rebecca Hanlon. Michael Rasco, guest of Fred Walker. Tiffany Spangler, guest of Rebecca Hanlon. Braden Long, guest of Chris Topf. Mark Platts, guest of past District Governor Dick Brown. And Patrick Branson, guest of the club.
Friends, thank you for joining us today. I know that you will enjoy our program, and I hope that you will return often to visit us in the future. As you have hopefully already realized, our club is a lively and diverse group of leaders, all of whom would warmly welcome your interest in joining our ranks. Rotarians, please help me welcome our visitors. Several announcements before we continue with our program. Our congratulations go out to Dan Burns and his wife on the birth of a second daughter this past week. Our condolences are extended to Jules Tolbert at the death of his mother also this past week. You may not have seen it yet, but the latest edition of Yoko Connects has come out. And as you look through this magazine, you will not be the least bit surprised to see that the majority of leaders profiled in the magazine are members of this club. And we heartily congratulate them on being so profiled. Membership committee will meet this afternoon at 1:30 in the terrace room here at CCY. The Rotary Club of York Board of Directors meets tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. via Zoom. Also tomorrow, Rotary District 7390 is hosting a Women in Rotary Summit from 7 to 8 p.m. via Zoom. Lynn lifted this up for us last week, and if you have interest in attending, please see her. The IDEA committee will meet on Monday, the 17th of October at 8 a.m. via Zoom. Back to the district for a moment. District 7390 is hosting 2 additional events this month. On Saturday, October 22nd, as we shared with you once before, they will hold the annual Rotary Leadership Institute. This is a wonderful opportunity to learn and to grow as a Rotarian. I thoroughly enjoyed my own attendance at this event in the past, and I strongly encourage you to consider attending. There is no cost to you for attendance at this event. Also, on Monday, October 24th, World Polio Day, there will be a slightly more active activity, a bike ride to eradicate polio. Bike riders will assemble at 4 p.m. at Leadership Harrisburg on Front Street. Please see Lynn or check out the district website for more information on that opportunity. As a reminder, following up on Jane and Bill Hartman's wonderful presentation last week about the Rotary Foundation, any member who pledges to become a member of the Paul Harris Society before October 31st will receive an extra 1,000 recognition points. To become a member of that society, you must commit to $1,000 a year in giving to the Rotary Foundation. The recognition points may be used by you to honor someone as a Paul Harris Fellow. Last week, 2 individuals were inspired enough by what they learned to make that commitment. So please feel free to join them. And finally, in the shameless plug department, at your tables, you will find a postcard inviting you to the inaugural event for the Graham Center for Collaborative Innovation at York College. The event features a very special guest speaker, the former Senior Vice President for Corporate Responsibility at Starbucks and the current CEO of Sustainable Business International. It is a program I believe that many of you would find intriguing and would resonate with, and it is, of course, free and open to the public. Registration information can be found on the cards. If you have any questions, please see me or Jeff Vermeulen following the meeting today. Last week, our club was strongly represented, I am happy to report, at the rededication of the Kiwanis Lake. Here to share a few things from that rededication is President-elect Aaron Jacobs.
Thank you, President Glenn. Rotarians, I wanted one final opportunity to address the club regarding our project at Kiwanis Lake. It is with great pride and pleasure that I can stand before you today to tell you that the project is complete and the ribbon has been cut. Yes. Thank you to the club for supporting and championing this project over the last couple of years. I was incredibly proud to see how many Rotarians came out to the ribbon cutting last week. I counted we had about 125 people show up, and about 30 of those or 40 were Rotarians. So that was amazing. I also wanted to thank Rotarians Alan Roth, Tom Barton, and BJ Fegley, and the entire Preserve Planet Earth committee for helping getting this project done. But on a personal note, I just wanted to say how important the Kiwanis Lake project has been for me, not just for what it has done for the community, but for how it brought a vision to life. This project and this club have been a proud moment in my life, and I am amazed when I think of how the Rotary Club of York and the Preserve Planet Earth Committee rallied behind this to make such a big difference in our neighborhoods and set the example for other Rotary and service clubs So we may be the 26th largest club in the world, but we are the #1 greatest club in the world as far as I'm concerned.
Said without any bias whatsoever, right, my friend? As one of the speakers at the rededication last week stated, Aaron was the spark driving the engine that made the restoration of Kiwanis Lake possible. And Lynn and I think that Sparky might be a great new nickname for our president-elect. I think the shoe fits. Aaron, seriously, we thank you very deeply for your investment of your own passion and time and skill and leading us by all of that. You are a shining example of the members of this club being a people of action. So thank you for what you did. And now Joe Stein has an update for us from the PPE committee. Nice transition. Joe?
Thank you, President Clem. So, good afternoon, Rotarians. As Rotarians, we strive to provide service to others, and that itself is from the opening line of the Rotary mission statement. And when pulling from the Rotary vision statement, Rotarians are people that unite, take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. And when I reflect on these words, in particular, action, lasting change, and community, there is someone here who really comes to mind and deserves some recognition. And so I requested a few minutes today to speak because I felt it was important to recognize one of our members and their impact to our community. It's an impact that doesn't come in the form of a monetary donation. No, it's much more valuable than just money. This person has taken action and dedicated much of his personal time over very many years to make our club and our community a better place. Oftentimes, we don't take time to pause and recognize those that give of their personal time selflessly to better their community, and we really should. And many of you here would rightfully join this person in deserving so. But today I stand before you to recognize President-elect Aaron Jacobs. On the heels of a successful ribbon cutting ceremony last week, which we just got a great recap of, we felt it proper to acknowledge Sparky for his work with that project and many others that occurred under his guidance as chair of the Preserve Planet Earth Committee over the past 10 years. So Aaron, I would ask if you'd come back up to the podium for and accept this plaque as a little token of our appreciation. Your hard work and dedication are appreciated and inspiration and deserve recognition, and so we thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Good timing. And now it's my great pleasure to welcome to the podium our own Silas Chamberlain, a champion in his own right of local environmental concerns, who will introduce our program and our speaker today. Silas.
All right. Good afternoon, Rotarians. It is a great day, not only because Phil Wenger is here to speak with us, but because we had funfetti cake for dessert. So I know it doesn't happen often, but we appreciate it when it does. So I know there's many in the crowd that just wanted to thank you on that. It is, of course, my pleasure to introduce Phil Wenger, who is president of the Lancaster Conservancy. Many of you may know that Phil was a local business owner and community leader who changed careers back in 2015 to join the Lancaster Conservancy as its president. As an entrepreneur, Phil built a restaurant chain and then sold it, planning to retire, but he wanted to leave a larger impact on the community and the Susquehanna River, which he loves. So he left retirement, to all of our benefit, to return to active leadership as the president of the Conservancy. During Phil's time with the Conservancy, he has added the team has added 2,600 acres to its portfolio of natural lands in Lancaster. and along the river in York County. He's doubled the Conservancy's staff size, making it one of the largest land conservancies in Pennsylvania, and has sharpened the organization's focus. On a personal note, I recently joined the board of directors of the Conservancy, and it's been really rewarding to be able to peek behind the curtain a bit and just see how dynamic and skilled this team really is when it comes to putting together complex land deals. And it's been very rewarding to see their work extending further and further into York County around some signature projects that Phil will talk about in a moment. I don't want to steal Phil's thunder because he has some really exciting recent developments with the Conservancy that he'll share with you. But I do want to, because I can't help myself, frame this presentation from my perspective in economic development. In York County, outdoor recreation is a major economic driver. 5,240 York County residents are employed in the outdoor economy here, and that's a 14% increase from a decade ago. So this is a resilient and rapidly growing part of our economy. In wages alone, York County's outdoor sector generates at least $135 million for Pennsylvania households. And Codorus, Pinchot, and Sam Lewis state parks generate $44 million in consumer spending every year and sustain 420 jobs, most of which are not on those state park lands, but rather out in the communities that are adjacent to our public lands. In fact, for every dollar invested in public lands, there are $12 returned to our state's economy. So just keep those nuggets of economic detail in mind as you're hearing Phil talk about the expansion of our outdoor assets in this county and think through the economic ripple effects to them. But as important as these economic impacts are, Phil will also be the first to tell you that the many environmental, aesthetic, and personal benefits of preserved lands are just as important. So with that, I'll introduce Phil Wenger, President of Lancaster Conservancy.
Thank you so much, Silas. Ever since I found there was an open slot between the elected officials who are filling our airwaves with time, I accepted this invitation to come and speak with you with great delight. I will tell you that it is really an honor to be here with this distinguished club. I was a member of the Lancaster Club for over a decade, and I can tell you it does not have the vibrancy that this club does. In fact, it has fallen into somewhat of a disrepair. And I will tell you that I think there's some rebuilding that has to be done. So obviously I hail from Lancaster, where I have a home, and I hail from York, but right now I'm living in Pelham Township, so I consider myself a York resident. And what we have though, is we have an ocean, like the governor likes to say, between Lancaster and York. And so, you know, there's a bunch of banks like Fulton Bank, and there's a bunch of companies like RKL, and, you know, there's a number of other organizations like Isaacs who try to do business on both sides. But in many cases, I have found this divide to be quite challenging. And so we're going to talk about that before I even get going with this presentation. It's the first question I'm always asked. Why is Lancaster County Conservancy acquiring land in York County? Well, there is a story to be told, and there's some players in this story in the room here today, and they can maybe give you a more accurate conversation. But about 2005, there was a plan as part of the relicensing of our dams in southern York County, the Safe Harbor and Holtwood dams, to basically liquidate all the land that wasn't required for energy generation or for recreation. And so they made a deal to sell off all of this land. And so a number of organizations came together. The Susquehanna National Heritage Area was one of those partners, the County of York, the County of Lancaster, the Conservation Fund. And if you don't know who they are, they did camp security and they provide financing for us. And they've helped the Susquehanna National Heritage Area with the Mifflin House. And the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources came together and said, we have to protect all this land. And so we put together a large landscape deal. Everybody put money in the pot. And we ended up owning land on both sides of the river. And at that period of time in history, we came to York and we basically said, who do we have a partner in York County that wants to own a bunch of natural lands? And so we went to Sean Kinney's organization, you know, the York Farm and Natural Lands Trust, and they operate differently with an easement model. They didn't want to go down there and monitor hikers and pick up trash. We went to York County Parks and we said, you want this land? It won't cost you anything. And at that point, they were involved in some challenging issues there at Highmont, and they said, no, we don't want any part of it. We went to the York Conservation Organization. I forget what it's called. I have it here somewhere. And they said no. And so we ended up owning land in York County because it was that important to protect it. We know that when our birds are migrating north and they're looking for a place to rest, we know when we have an infestation of spotted lanternfly, they don't know where that border is. They don't know where the river is. And we have to address both the ecological issues and the other issues combined. So that started that journey. And so the state came together at that point and said, we've got all this land. We're going to create what's called a conservation landscape. Now, a conservation landscape is this special focused area where the state says, we should protect this land. And they determined that this conservation landscape was the municipalities on both sides of the river. So take all the municipalities on the York side, from Goldsboro all the way down to the Maryland line, and on Lancaster the same way. And they wanted us to play the lead in protecting land along that river. And so fast forward, 2005 comes along. There's 750 acres for sale up there in the Elm Hills. It was a water company that divested their land, they'd taken out the reservoirs, and they were going to sell it for development. And I had just taken on this job, and I said, we have to protect that land. Where else do you find 700 acres that are not, protected? And so that started us with that property. Then Bob Kinsley got involved with us, and he said, I'll help you. We went to a couple of auctions together, bought some land, and then we wrote for grants and we funded those. And before you know it, we own over 1,000 acres in Pelham Township. And meanwhile, in the southern end, we've got properties coming online that I'm going to talk about in just a minute. But I just wanted you to understand a little bit about that history before I get to my slides. But I did want to just, for those of you that are not familiar with land protection, I just want to give you a little primer. Some organizations like the York Farm and Natural Lands Trust do an amazing job. The Lancaster Farmland Trust does the same thing. They go in, they find those properties where there's a motivated property owner and there's a need to protect the land, and they work with them to do what's called a conservation easement. And that easement reimburses the property owner, and we protect a lot of land. And the York Farm and Natural Lands Trust has done that in spades. They've been a tremendous partner here in York County, and they work closely with us. In fact, our senior VP of land protection and Sean get together all the time, and we hand projects off to each other in York County. But the easement model doesn't allow the land to be open to the public. Those are all privately owned lands that can be bought and sold. And so in this land trust movement, easements are really popular. Lancaster County has preserved over 100,000 acres of farmland, and I know that well. What we do, though, is we say that some land is so precious, it's so spectacular, it has waterfalls, it has vistas, it has special unique ecosystems, that it should be protected. But then what we want to do as a land trust is we want to make sure we invite you to be able to come in and interact with that. And so our lands, because we use some public grants to acquire them, are all open to the public. And we believe very strongly that if you interact with nature, like think about your growing up days, think about the times you went into the streams or the times that you went hunting and interact with nature, you will want to protect the remaining nature that we have. And so we are a private land trust. That's what we do. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about who we are and what we do, and it'll just be helpful here for you. This is the view of Wizard Ranch. I don't know if you know, but the Boy Scouts were divesting of some of their assets they weren't using. We made a deal with them where they came. We're doing major restoration work there now. Our mission, though, is that we provide these wild and forested lands and the benefit of cleaning the waterways for our community and forever. So we like to say we're in the forever business, because when we buy a tract of land, we do a number of different tools to make sure that it will always be open to the public and always protected. But people have to understand where this impulse came from. So 53 years ago, a bunch of guys, just like some of you sitting in this room, said, we are concerned that we're losing all of our special places to development. And they were motivated primarily by hunting and fishing. the hunting and fishing was disappearing across Lancaster County. And they said, we have to go together and we have to save those old fishing streams from pollution, from development. We have to get together and set aside some hunting lands that I don't need to know the owner and get a special pass, but that we can then add to the state's game lands. And so they did the original charter. And if you read that, it's exactly the same as our mission today. We provide wild and forested land. So for 53 years, we've been doing this acquisition business. And so today that number is wrong. That number is over 10,000 acres. This slide came from an older deck. I tried to change it this morning and didn't get around to it. But we have miles of trails for hiking and recreation for all those employers who are trying to attract people to come here. We have all these miles of streams where we're doing projects to restore those streams to protect the Chesapeake Bay. We have lots and lots of trees, particularly along the river. And we believe that now is the time for conservation. So in York County, we have focused on that conservation landscape. Right now, we are not involved in land protection initiatives across the entire county, but we are singularly focused on that beautiful corridor that is our river corridor. And for a lot of you who drive the 83 corridor or the 30 corridor, you may not be able to get over there and interact with that. But for anybody who goes to Wildcat Falls or goes down to Mill Creek Falls or has hiked the Mason-Dixon Trail, you have an incredible asset here in York County that it needs to be protected, and we all need to come together and do that. So one of the things I do is I talk to people about why conservation is important. And it varies person to person. For some people, you know, obviously conservation is that you want a place to hike and recreate. You want to get on your backpack on the weekends, you want to get away from chores, and you need to clear your mind. So for some people, that's really the important thing. For other people, maybe the ones who have scientists in their family or young people who are going off and getting environmental degrees, we're in trouble. We've lost 1/3 of our bird weight biomass in North America in the last 25 years. We've lost almost 1/4 of our insect population. We have an ecosystem that is the natural world isn't working right. And for some people, they really believe that as much as we humans love to subdivide and build our houses and shopping centers and warehouses, we need to set aside land or we're just going to lose this populations that we've lived with for years, that we share a web of life with. For other people, it has to do with the clean air and water. Now, I know the stats for Lancaster County better than York, but we have more impaired days in Pennsylvania than any other county. And, you know, trees do clean the air, believe it or not, and they do filter our waterways. And the more we cut our trees down, the more impaired our water and air become. And so some people, that's really the important issue. Maybe they've got asthma in the family and they want to support us for that. And then for other people, it is this whole idea that climate change is real. The earth is warming up and we need to store carbon. If we're going to continue to drive our SUV up around the corner to get a quart of milk, and just to do that, then maybe we ought to plant some trees in order to be able to suck up that carbon so that we can live with a little less guilt in our lives about the impact that we might be having. So lots of people come to us for all those reasons. Others, they're motivated by young people. I used to enjoy watching TV. My nieces and nephews, they don't watch TV anymore. They've got a device like I'm looking at here. They have another device like this that they're looking at there. And they forget what it's like to go out and to experience what it's like to jump into a stream and pick up a crawdaddy or to be able to watch a spider's nest. And so for some people, kids, environmental education is really important. So Lancaster Conservancy, we are this land trust, but we do 3 things in York County. And I just want you aware of these. First and foremost, our number 1 thing is we want to acquire the remaining forest and stream buffers along the Susquehanna River. You know it, I know it. Wilmington's growing north, Baltimore's growing toward York, Harrisburg's growing toward Lancaster, Lancaster's growing toward York, and York's growing toward Harrisburg. You just need to drive our roads and sit on the traffic trying to get off the exits to know what we're doing. We need to love this river that goes down through here, and we need to protect the land along it as an asset for all of us. So our grandchildren will have a place that they can go. Second, we need to restore it. So we need to put in infrastructure so that you can come and interact with it, so that you can enjoy the benefit of it. And then we also do that for the science, taking land and making it viable for all the creatures we share this planet with. And that takes projects. And then we do what I'm doing here today. We want to inspire you to care about our imperiled planet. We want to inspire you to get out into nature, because we know that if you love nature, you will love the planet, and you will probably support our work in protecting those special places. So I just want to go through a few of the things we're focused on right now in York County. We want to protect our land. I talked about the Hellam Hills. This is some of the sexy stuff. So we are adding properties here. We have 8 different properties: Wizard Ranch, the water company lands, the town of Marietta is right across the stream. Route 30 is at the bottom of the stream. You can't see that, but we just continue to work in this area as one of the largest and only forested area left in the triangle between York, Harrisburg, and Lancaster. The only one. There's a bunch of 100-acre forests, but there's nothing that's thousands of acres that exists anymore inside that triangle. And so we've continued to work there where these beautiful glens are, where there's waterfalls like Wildcat Run, where Wizard Ranch has this amazing landscape that was a Boy Scout camp for all those years. And then we found this 1,000 acres right next door. And that land became available for sale. And we ended up working diligently to put it under agreement. And you would have read that in the papers. And it led to this new state park that we announced last week. I love this picture. You probably can't see it, but the governor came. This was surplus oil and shale gas money, stood shoulder to shoulder with Stan Saylor, Hellam Township municipal officers, York County commissioners, and welcomed $11 million to protect this 1,100 acres right here where the Codorus flows into the Susquehanna. If this hadn't happened, if we hadn't looked into the future and said, we need to protect this land, it's so important, we would have had more housing developments. It was a nice, large, flat area. Could have been a beautiful warehouse. It's only like 6 miles out to Route 2, I-83. And we may have lost this land forever. But now you can actually whitewater. Well, this is all the press that was with it, but you can actually whitewater in the Codorus Creek because we saved about 1.5 miles of that. And there's a mile of undeveloped Susquehanna there. So the state park, why did we do state parks? Well, they have more resources than we do. So when state parks comes to town, they can actually put in the paddle areas where you want to launch your kayaks. You know, York County is really limited on their public access to the Susquehanna, in particular from Route 30 going north. This will be a new place for that. And for young folks who want recreation. So the other area here I just want to talk about real briefly is between the dams. We continue to add tracks down there. There's a rice property that we worked with Sean Keeney on. We thought that they wanted to do a conservation easement on it. They ended up agreeing to sell it. That is right across from the dam. We have Otter Creek there, and then we bought Mill Creek Falls and the old Camp Donegal, and we continue to piece that landscape together. I just want to call your attention to the land on both sides of the river. If you've never been down to Uri Point or hiked Otter Creek or gone down to Indian Steps, it's pitch black there at night. That gorge is right in the middle of major population centers, and it is wild and is protected, and it will be forever. And that is what's so amazing to me. So once we end up buying all this land and putting it to work, which is a process that will take place over the next 50 years as we knit this all together, we then have an opportunity to steward that land. But before I go to that, I just want to talk about this because I get asked this a lot. Why do you decide to buy one tract and not another? In other words, you know, how do you evaluate that? And so what I wanted to share is that we do use database systems. We have young people in my office who use GIS and other database connectors, and they linked into the tax parcel data that York County has, and that they laid in all these other databases. Where does your drinking water come from? Where are the number of impaired streams? What is the ground cover? What is its proximity to other protected lands? And so we can click on every single tax parcel, including your home, and we can get a natural area score. A system that we created that we've taken out to the national and state conferences about how to do this. But we do use science to decide which land is most natural and should be protected, where we're using taxpayer and private resources to be able to do that. So just real briefly, I'm almost done here. The restoration piece for us is an ongoing love of effort. You know, we get out, we evaluate and do a plan for every single one of our nature preserves, you know, including the 13 we have in York County. And then we basically make a case for the nature that lives there. And we actively work with the landscape to make for sure that it is healthy as possible. Humans have mucked up this landscape. Now humans need to come back and help restore it. So in many cases, there's invasive plants, there's trees that need to be planted. There's a lot of restoration. We work with other ecological groups to come in and work with the animals that are on the sites and that kind of thing. But protecting the land and restoring it, restoration is a huge piece for us. We take some of these working landscapes and they were just old farm dumps. They were places that people put trash. We clean all of that kind of stuff out. And then we build trails. And so we keep adding miles of trails where you can go and get away. And then we use this word resiliency a lot. What we discover is that if you help nature, nature bounces back. So if you restore a stream that farmers cut into a ditch that runs fast and washes out the houses along it and creates flooding, and you go back in and you rebuild that stream, you actually get what's called resilience. You don't have those flooding episodes that we've had so many of here in York County. And so we're doing that, but we also find that nature, if we go in and help remove a lot of those bad plants and plant native plants that birds can feed on, they bounce back, they come back. Nature has this huge restorative effect. It has a restorative effect on us as human beings. I can give you my own personal testimony on that and how I deal with stress, but it also has a restorative effect on the creatures that we share this planet with. So we do lots of things. We do capital projects. We build bridges and trails, parking lots, but then we also set aside money to care for this. Private land trust, okay? Public lands. We're not the state. We can't just pass a budget. We can't pass a tax. And so we're being very careful about building our endowment so that you don't own all this land and it just goes to heck. You have to restore it and open it to the public. So we do that a lot as well. Last but not least, we need to build a bigger army of people who love conservation. And the sexiest thing to sell people is that we need to get kids that don't love nature out into nature. And so we're going to continue to build out, and we're going to be doing this over the next 3 to 5 years here in York County, getting people to come and experience nature. So right now at Wizard Ranch, we're rebuilding wetlands, we're replanting forests, we're rebuilding a landscape, and then we're going to build some infrastructure there, some parking areas, some pavilions that we can bring kids out into nature and teach them that this planet that we live in is a shared experience and we all need to be respectful. So we have a great educator that we hired. He's fully experienced, been around forever, Keith Williams. He's building a whole new program for us. We're making major investments in this, and we will be coming to York and working with some of your schools, we already are, and with some of your particular kids in the city who don't get a chance to experience nature. We want to make sure we have an ability to be able to partner with certain organizations to come out and do that in the community. So that's my presentation. Those are some of my thoughts. I can answer questions about anything. I know I covered a lot, talked about land protection, talked about nature, talked about the Lancaster Conservancy versus the York. Happy to answer any questions. Back here. So the question is, do we build bike trails? And the answer is that for the most part, bike trails are considered multimodal trails. And we think they are better suited for municipalities and county organizations to build and support. They attract a lot of people. They have a high cost to maintain. And we're the nature guys. We're not really the bike trail guys. Now, that said, we've been working with a couple mountain biking groups here in York County who want to figure a way to ride their bikes from York up across Rocky Ridge and out across Hellam Hills and down to the river. And so when we did a master plan for the Hellam Hills, we actually put in a gravel bike road that traverses our 1,000 acres and goes up over the hill and comes down to the river. And so we'll make that available, but they will be doing the bike trail in their own routing, some of it on private roads and some of it up across Rocky Ridge. Other questions? Yes.
So you talked about the repurposing of Wizard Ranch, and you had also mentioned Camp Donegal. Have you or will you do something similar with that parcel?
So the question is, with what the educational initiatives that we're doing at Wizard Ranch, will we be doing those down in the southern end in Lower Chancellor Township down there at Camp Donegal? And the answer is no. Here's what happens. We have a place called Climbers Run on the Lancaster County side, and we have Wizard Ranch on the Lancaster side, and that's all we can take on. We love land. We don't like buildings. We're just not property managers. Some of you in this room might property manage, but we aren't property managers. And so as a result, that camp came with a lot of structures. It had clubhouses, it had cabins, it had like 15 cabins, it had a big swimming pool, it had a variety of things. And we carved those off of a fairly large acquisition, maybe 180 acres. And we carved those off and we sold them to somebody who's actually running it now as a little private a rental place. And so the structures are still there, the pools are still there, but you need to go like on Airbnb and find them. But it's right next to a nature preserve and all the natural land, that point that goes out where you used to camp, and the beautiful hemlock and mountain laurel and rhododendron walk down to the falls is still there. That's on our land. Yes. 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 So the question is, how do we interact with organizations like the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, the Chesapeake Bay Alliance, and the other organizations who are really working on a multi-state approach to dealing with the challenges that our Bay experiences? And the truth of the matter is we work closely with many of them. We mostly, though, focus on restoration on our lands. So I can just tell you a story at Wizard Ranch right now. We are doing a lot of forestry mowing. There's a lot of invasive trees and plants that shouldn't be there, and we're mowing them down, and then we're replanting trees there. We do the same down at Safe Harbor. We planted about 5,000 trees there. We took basically what was Class C and D farm fields that were not productive for ag any longer. And we've all turned them back into restoration areas. And we do that with help and support from the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and the 10 Million Trees and some of the other initiatives. Back here, and then I'll come here. So the question is, are we measuring the impact of protecting this land on, you name it, miles of recreation? I don't know. And I'm smiling because I got a questionnaire yesterday from our Lancaster, all the healthcare systems go together and they do an annual evaluation that yields to whether we're a healthy community and getting healthier or whether we're a sick community and getting sicker. And I went through all the measurements and data that we were to report in on. And quite frankly, none of them are ones that we have the science that we're tracking right now. We put out game cameras to count people, but I can't tell you whether our uses are up or down. I can tell you that, during COVID, we were overrun and that has continued. And we track that by you going to our website and clicking on, I want to go to a nature preserve, and we see that volume of traffic at our website to be equally as high. The measurements around clean water, the measurements around carbon stored, the nutrient credits that might be demonstrated by the quality of the water after restoration. Those are all markets that we're dabbling in, but we're not in right now. But right now there are programs where if you do a restoration, you can sell that restoration to somebody that wants to do a development project. And so you can sell carbon that you store in your trees to a polluter that doesn't want to put extra carbon stacks on their stovepipes. And so there is a whole market out there, and we now have grown at our 10,000 acres to where we're starting to look at that as sources of income, but we don't currently do that. Down here. Yeah, so the question is, can you volunteer? So we have volunteer opportunities, lots and lots. So we have an online training program, and then you get assigned a nature preserve, so you can actually go out and do that. We have volunteers who help us with our community engagement and everything else. In fact, if you scan that, if you hold your phone up, I don't know whether it'll work from here, but that'll lead you right to our website that has all the volunteer opportunities for you. But right now, we have one of our educators comes from York County and one from Lancaster County, and we are looking for more volunteers in York County all the time and have almost two full-time people managing our volunteers. But land stewards are the one popular thing where you basically adopt a nature preserve and you get out there every other week, you walk the trails, you notify me when someone dumps a bunch of, you notify us when you get dumped a bunch of dirty diapers out there, and then somebody has to go pick them up, and you let us know when a tree falls across the trail, and it's really fun being a land steward. But the engagement piece is what I like, which is, you go out and collect people's information. Everybody uses our lands, but we don't know who they are. They're free of charge. You can come and enjoy all this land the Conservancy has protected, and there's no cost to you. And so what we try and do is we try and get people to connect the idea that the nature that you experience comes from a bunch of hardworking folks making that happen. Yes, I don't know. I think you were next, and if there's time, I'll take yours.
You mentioned black skies in one area. Do you have a large enough area to have a dark sky park? The nearest one to York is 4 hours away.
Yeah. So the question is, can you really get away from light pollution here in York and Lancaster County? And the answer is no. Our big cities spill over. So when I'm down there in Southern York County, I start to see the Baltimore lights because I'm down near the border, and Wilmington is just, 35 miles to the east, and we spill that light. So no, we don't really get dark nights here, but it's darker than it is where I am in Wrightsville, where I live, where all of York's lights just fill the sky for me back here. Yes. Yeah, so this is growing in importance. So the question is, how important is archaeology in your land protection decisions? And what are we doing about this incredible Native American history that exists here across the Susquehanna River Valley, as we call it, these municipalities along the river? And I look down here at my friend Mark Platts, the Susquehanna National Heritage Area. They have identified doing some of that work at the high level and doing a lot of education around it in their initiatives. Our organization has a staff person who has an advanced degree in archaeology, but our approach is leave it lie. Don't mess with it until you have the researchers and the folks who want to come and do it the right way. Because we've had amateur people come out and they start digging around, and we have to write them up and tell them they can't do that. Because the best way in identifying Native American history is not to disturb the landscape, but to actually come back in and begin to evaluate that. Sadly, the Native American population in this community was largely eliminated. The remaining tribes that have claim to history. I mean, Lancaster was famous because we just, we assassinated and killed off the last of the Conestoga Indians, as an example. And so we don't have good tribe representation to come in and partner with that. But we do open all of our lands to universities who want to do research and other organizations who come in and want to tell that story. And we do some of it ourselves with some of our educational speakers that we do online and that kind of thing. But it's not, we're a land trust. We want to partner with others to do that. Yes, Lynn.
So I'm familiar with the water week that your organization conducted in my couple of years. I'm interested if you could talk a little bit about that, and if you're thinking of doing water week in North County.
So Water Week, the question is, what about Water Week? And is this something that might come to York? We would need, yes. No. So Water Week, the Lancaster County and York County both have big bullseye on them for our streams and rivers being impaired and impacting the Chesapeake Bay. And it has to do with the amount of agriculture we have and a lot of the agriculture practices and even some of the development and land planning that we've done. And Lancaster County has organized an effort, a Clean Water Coalition, a bunch of groups that came together and are working with the Conservation Fund and not the Conservation Fund, the conservation districts, and are really building this out. They came to us and said, we need somebody to come and champion clean water across the community. We need you to do a week-long festival, and you need to hold multiple events. And so we have about 20 organizations who all come together and host events that week. And it's like a huge clean water festival where all we're doing is trying to link people's minds between the water in the Kiwanis and their swimming needs and their drinking needs and try and understand that we can clean our waterways with a concerted community effort. And so Water Week was talked about packaging up and taking it to other communities, but in order to take it to other communities, we have to have a strong community partner to do that. But we might, if we were all of York County, maybe, but really right now we're focused on the lands along the river in York, but it's a good suggestion. Come and talk some more. Yes, right here. And then I'll come here. So the question is, from a advocacy or a legislative point of view, what are the challenges that we face? I will tell you that we are at a time when we've been blessed with resources at both the state and local level. And I will tell you why. And that is that conservation, clean water, clean air, protecting natural lands is an issue that when you survey the legislators, you get 98% support on the Republican side and 97% support on the Democratic side. And it's being made up of hunters and fishermen who are generally very conservative and very rural. They want to protect that rural lifestyle. They want to protect their way of life. And then on the left, you have all of the young people who want us to save the planet. And they care about all these environmental issues, the energy that we're consuming, climate change, habitat loss. And what this movement has done is it's brought both of those together to where during the current budget negotiations, state parks got 100 million. They're doing a second grant round right now for more land protection and energy thing. We passed Growing Greener 3, and we find that both left and right think we need to do something. At the national level, they don't come together with any policy changes that really want to deal with climate change. At the local level, people are saying, we want to do something. And we just happen to be an organization, one of the organizations at the right place at the right time to capture some of that impulse. Over here. Oh, good. Well, we'd be happy to be a part of that. Maybe bring a sponsorship or something. Yes. So the question is, as a land trust who has all these public lands, do we have conflicts with the hunters and fishermen and people who are using and abusing our lands? And the answer to that is we do use the Commonwealth's mechanisms for support. So if you go to our website and say, can I hunt on any of Lancaster County Conservancy's land? I will tell you we have 5,300 acres. And you will find them listed on our nature preserves, what's archery, what's rifle, where it is, and they're all marked. But we use the Pennsylvania Game Commission in a cooperative agreement to do all the enforcement. So they're the guys, they carry the sidearms. They're the guys you call when there's a conflict, and they come in and deal with those conflicts. And so if you go to the Pennsylvania Game Commission website, you will discover all of our lands listed there alongside the Pennsylvania Game Commission website. I will tell you, though, that in York County, you have less public hunting lands than all the adjacent counties combined. When we were looking at reasons of why we should protect land in York County, particularly these large tracts, we looked at the Pennsylvania Game Commission's land in York County, and it's really a very small number of acres that you have down in the southern end. Where in Lancaster County, we have all the area up along the turnpike. There's a lot more Pennsylvania Game Commission lands there. So we thought maybe that would be a motivation. More public hunting in York County could be a good thing. And so we do have archery only right now on the water company lands. We call that the Pelham Hills Nature Preserve. And the new state park has archery right now as well. With land we protected. Thank you. I think I'm getting the boot.
I have a final question.
All right, we have a final question coming here.
With all of this great impact and partnership in York,
How soon are you going to change the name to be more reflective?
So the question is, how soon are we going to change the name? And it's a really easy answer. I had it in my initial comments, but I missed saying it. We will change the name when we have parity. I wanted to change the name 5 years ago. We actually planned to do it. I went to all my Lancaster County donors who give us millions every year and pay a lot of money to protect land, including money that comes across the river to York County to protect those Pelham Hills. And they said, no, we don't like that idea. But I will tell you that if there's a donor in this room that would give us $5 million, seriously, and propose a name change, I think it would happen very quickly because 35% of our land now is in York County. We just weren't fully set up to be a bi-county organization. We were focused on the Susquehanna River. And so that's been a little bit of the challenge that we've had. But I do think that that will be in our future at some point. Thank you, though.
Either 5 million, or if we just get to 50% instead of 35, then we've got parity. You know, we joke a lot about the rivalry between our two communities, and I love the image of the Susquehanna as an ocean rather than a river, but we may be separated by the mighty Susquehanna, but we are, or at least should be, united in our mutual concern and efforts around the issues that you and your organization are so passionately focused on. We appreciate your presence here. We appreciate very much the work that you're doing to benefit our community and our beloved sister community across the river. In honor of Phil's visit today, he has signed the book plate for the book Ties, Travels, All Aboard by Kelly Starling Lyons, which will be donated to the York Jewish Community Center Child Care Program. Thank you again, Phil. Next week, our program will feature Dr. Mesmet Oz, Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate. Dr. Oz is a well-known thoracic surgeon and successful self-made TV show host, entrepreneur, who is seeking to represent our state in the U.S. Senate. The format of the presentation will feature a conversation-style exchange with past President Dave Meckley moderating, utilizing questions received from all of you here in the club. A special and very important note: we held 5 open dates for candidates, and an invitation was extended to all of the candidates. In particular, with regard to Dr. Oz, we extended an invitation to Democratic candidate Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman immediately following the May primaries. And unfortunately, he has not responded and is not coming to speak to our club. So we are a nonpartisan organization, and it's important for everybody to know that we were completely nonpartisan and open in the invitations that were extended to all of the candidates for this fall. We anticipate this meeting will be well attended. If you are planning to bring a guest to next week's meeting, please register your guest with the office as soon as possible. This will help CCY plan for the meeting. Our closing imagine quote rather, I can't imagine anything more important than air, water, soil, energy, and biodiversity. These are the things that keep us alive. Thank you, friends. This meeting is adjourned. See that man right over there.